It is an honor to be in front of you today in the United Nations. A couple of disclaimers before I start. Excuse me. First of all, I want to identify with Branko's comments in terms of the demand for energy going forward. I will discuss these matters in a little more depth in my presentation. We are at Peabody, we are of the view that we need everything, everywhere, all the time when it comes to energy because of unmet human needs around the globe that exist today, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Secondly, I want to say, being in the United Nations, and I have a slide from the United Nations, the Human Development Index, that we identify to the aspirational goals of the United Nations in terms of how the UN sees the world, how the UN sees future energy supply, how the UN sees issues like sustainability. Thirdly, I'd like to say, with respect to our current administration in Washington, D.C., President Obama, the United States Congress, President Obama talks in terms of an 80% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2050. We identify with that. And I want to talk to you today about how we see coal how we see coal fitting in. We have a number of different, the conventional so-called sources of energy represented here today, all of which are important. They talk about king coal. They talk about coal being dead or not. They talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to say here today, I've been involved in coal in the United States since 1980, and I am proud of it. I am proud of our coal industry, what we have accomplished. I am proud of what coal does in the United States and around the globe for the well-being of people everywhere. Coal has challenges for sure. Coal has always had challenges. The color of my hair says that I've been doing this a while, and I've been through some of those challenges. But the one constant remains is we use more coal, and we use more coal every year. In the United States, we've plateaued now, but around the globe, as you'll see, it's pretty profound what's going on in terms of the growth of the coal industry as I stand here today in the midst of the worst economic downturn this country, for sure, has seen since the Great Depression. So let me get into the guts of this now that I've given my disclaimers, and I'm sure we'll have a robust Q&A after. We'll start with the first slide in our themes. Coal reserves around the globe are sufficient to provide for centuries of expanded use to allow more people to live longer and live better. And every human on Earth has the right to live as well as everybody in this room, everybody in this city, everybody in this country. They have that right. And the governments of the world have the obligation to create conditions for people to do that. And that means available, affordable energy and electricity. Air, food, water, healthcare, electricity required for modern life. And coal fills that role. Coal is the world's energy advantage. It is the affordable, abundant fuel that powers global growth. Green coal technology, which I will discuss, is the key to unlocking coal's future, the value of coal in the future. Next slide. I want to talk to you a little bit about coal's record in enabling people to escape from poverty around the globe. This is the UN Human Development Index that I made reference to. Life expectancy, educational attainment, and income all correlate to energy use, in this case, electricity consumption per kilowatt hour. You see the United States high on the list here. We consume a lot of electricity in the United States. We're criticized for it, as if using electricity is a bad thing. It is not. We must use it wisely. We must conserve. We must be efficient. We must provide value. We must do it sustainably and meet environmental concerns and goals. All of that is true, but we also must use electricity. Using electricity is a good thing. The industrialized world has known this for a long time. The developing world, led by China, understands that probably better than we do today. Life expectancy increases 10 years for every 10-fold increase in electricity use. 2.8 billion of the world's population has adequate access to electricity. 3.6 billion people have partial access or no access to electricity. That is the major environmental problem facing the world today, is poverty and all the associated ills that go along with that because of the lack of affordable electricity for the peoples of the world. You saw a version of this earlier and a speaker that had a different point of view perhaps on the importance of large-scale modern electricity generation for people. But it is a fact that these kinds of conditions exist for 2.5 billion people who use wood or dung for their primary energy source, with all the environmental problems attendant with that. Forget about emissions into the atmosphere. It's emissions into the huts that they live in, and it kills kids, millions of kids a year. Next slide. Societies with greater access to electricity live longer and they live better. Surviving childhood metrics are positive for those places where electricity use is heavy and not so where they're not. People live longer, they drink cleaner water, they eat better, they're better educated. Next slide. And does this not say it all? 20% of the people in North Korea have access to electricity, which means 80% do not. South Korean access approaches 100%. South Korea uses 100 million tons of coal per year for electricity generation, steel generation, and all of the things attendant with a modern society. They rank 32nd in GDP per capita, North Korea 156th. Infant mortality rate is 12 times higher in North Korea than in South Korea. South Korean preschool children average 3 inches taller and 7 pounds heavier than North Korean children. Economists call these positive externalities, which don't get weighed when people are talking about the robust use of coal. That's why I'm proud of coal, right there. That slide to me says it all. Next slide.